So my name is Serenity, and this will be my addiction story. So currently I am 18 years old. I'm 19, sorry, just had a birthday. When I was 15 years old, I tried using meth for the first time, and I did not quit using it for 3 years. Within the time frame, I quit going to school. I did not graduate high school. I went through a very miserable, awful time period when I was using, especially for like the last 2 years. The way I used was I would smoke or snort. I was in 2 relationships within this time of 3 years, and one lasted for 2 years and the other lasted for 10 months. The relationships, like, I don't want to speak too much on the relationships. I want to speak more so solely on me. Towards the end, like me stopping using, it came down to I was very miserable. I was very depressed. It came back down to a point where, like, the last month I was using, or 2 months I was using, I didn't want to get out of bed. All I could do was cry. And all I wanted to do was use. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about my family or my friends. I didn't care about anybody but me and the person who I was dating, actually more than myself. I was very codependent. The whole 3 years that I was using, trying to choose my words carefully, was very emotionally disturbing. I went through some things, throughout the whole time where, just, they do a lot of wear on a person and can change them very much so. Like, I changed so much. Like, I just went through a lot. I went through a lot, honestly. I don't really want to go into detail because, they're very personal things. My mom knew I was using, towards the end, like towards the last 10 months of my using time. She found out. My cousin actually told her, and I thank God for that, because the day that she did, I actually went to my mom's house because I wasn't living with my mom. I was living at a friend's house with her boyfriend, and that helped me so much. Like, my cousin has no idea how much she helped me. Like, I went home to my mom's house, and my mom told me, she's like, "Are you using?" And I was like, "No, like, that's crazy. Like, no, I mean, I have, but I haven't used since, like, X amount of months before. Like, it was just a one-time thing." And I was lying to her so bad. She's like, "Okay, well, if you don't think that you have a problem, or you don't think that you need help, then there's nothing I can do for you. Until you can admit that you want help or whatever." I was like, "Okay, Mom, like, whatever, I'm not using, so I don't know what you're talking about, But I was, and it was, it was terrible. A couple months later, in April, I saw the Addiction Network commercial on TV, and I called that number, and I spoke to a lady for 2 weeks straight, trying to figure out, like, rehabs I could go to that my insurance covered. I snuck in my mom's purse, and I got my insurance card so, she could see what rehabs were a network for my insurance. And so she did that, and then once she found a rehab for me, it took me about a week before I could say anything to my mom. And I was like, "Mom, well, actually, one of the people who I I said I was in a relationship with two people. The first person that I was in a relationship with, she actually went to rehab herself, and in Tennessee. So I was like, Mom, you know, this person went to rehab in Tennessee and said it was really good and said that I should try it out. So she was like, oh, well, okay, you know, I'll look into it or whatever. Or I said, well, I've been talking to someone on the phone, you know, about going like to rehabs and stuff. So I told her, I sent her the link that the lady sent me in an email. But my mom wanted something closer, so they did find something closer, Florida. I live in South Carolina, by the way. So I went to rehab called Stepping Stones in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was there for about a month, and I just got chills. That was literally the best thing I've ever done for myself. Going to rehab was an eye-opener. I learned so many things in rehab about myself, about other people, about just life in general. You know, how to be my own person, you know. I learned my character defects. I learned all about like the 12 steps. Like Narcotics Anonymous is like me. The 12 steps, I followed them to my best ability. You know, if you're not familiar with what, you know, the 12 steps are, or like rehab and stuff like that, then I could recommend, you know, like looking it up to see what I'm talking about. Like that was like the best thing I've ever done for myself. So I just wanted to say, like, if there's anyone out there, like you personally or someone that you know struggling, like, or anyone that you, like, for one, do not bash them. You know, like the things that people do when they're on drugs, they cannot help it. It comes down to a point where getting high is no longer a choice. It comes down to a point where that's all you know how to do, unless you're, you know, like, people can't just choose, like, to care about things when they're on drugs. And this is so true. Like, I'm being so serious, you guys. Like, drugs, like, changes a person for the worse. Like, it can make people do things that they would never do clean and sober. Like, awful things. Stealing, you know, cheating, like, lying, like, it brings out the worst in people. And people really cannot help the things that they do while they're on drugs. And that just sounds, like, to me, that even sounds ridiculous. Like, I hate saying, like, they can't help it or it's not a choice, but it's really not. Like, it comes down to a point where it's not. And you're not yourself at all for most people. Always try to help somebody, you know, like, you never know what people are going through, and you never know what people are going through. And especially, like, if they're on drugs, like, try to help them. Like, don't. People change. People are not themselves when they're on drugs, and that's all I have to say about that. So I've been clean for 143 days today. I got clean for myself, for me. But one of my coping skills is making meaning. My meaning is my nephew and my 2 nieces. When I was in active addiction, my sister did not want me to have anything to do with her or her kids, and that tore me apart. Like, those kids are like I love them like so much. They're just like the cutest things ever, and you know, like, I'm just completely like obsessed with them. They are like my light. And once I left rehab, like, I talked to my sister when I was in rehab. Like, we hadn't talked for months, but I talked to her in rehab, and she was like, okay, well, you know, she'd been telling me this for months too, that she wants me to come out there and live with her in California where she was living. And of course I was in drugs, you know, and active addiction, so I was like, you know, like, no, I'm gonna stay here in South Carolina with my peoples and just get high because I don't care about anything else. That was the truth. But after rehab, I went to go out and live in California with my sister, which was, again, another great decision that I made. I became really close with her and the kids, and you know, like, that just like makes me so happy. That's one of the things that keeps me from using today, is those kids. And you know, like, ever since I quit using, like, I've become so much happier. Like, my life is, like, I have no complaints at all. So I lived out in California with my sister and her husband and their 3 kids for a few months. And then we moved back here to South Carolina. I used to live with my mom, but due to all those people, places, and things I don't need to be surrounded by, I moved out to live with my dad. Now, I've been living here for probably about 2 months, almost 2 months, and this is the longest I've ever lived with my dad. I've never lived with him before. This is the longest time I've ever been around my dad, period. This is my first time living with him. And it was a good decision. Like, at first, I did not, like, I was like, nope, I'm not moving there. Like, I cannot live with my dad. But it actually turned out, you know, to be really good. And I love my dad. And, like, yeah, it's good out here. I like it here. I still do see my mom and my sister, nieces, and nephew. Whenever I go to visit, they live like an hour and a half away from here, so we go visit a couple times a week, or once a week. But I do see them. You know, we go to church together sometimes. Like, so many things have looked up for me since I quit doing drugs. Like, it was the best decision I've ever made for myself to quit doing drugs and going to rehab. And I don't think I would have been able to quit drugs without rehab, because I did try myself to get clean, and it did not happen. I was way too depressed, completely, like, so anxious. Like, my anxiety ate me up completely. I was taking Wellbutrin for depression and to help me quit smoking, cigarettes, Boost Bar for anxiety. I also took, like, I forgot what it's called, but I used to get really nauseous, so I would take something to help with the nausea. And I also took melatonin to help me go to sleep at night. Oh, and wow, what is the name of the sleeping medicine? Trazodone. I used to take Trazodone as well. It's a antidepressant, but I use it to help me go to sleep. So yeah, but thanks for watching my video. If you have any questions, whatever,